Hello and welcome to the Music Survival Guide, the independent musician's guide on how to survive in the music industry. My name is Phil, I'm a mixing engineer. Hope you're doing wonderfully well out there. I'm going to try and keep this podcast relatively brief, as it's currently a million degrees where I'm recording, and I've got my fan off, and it's not good. So I'm going to crack on before I melt into oblivion. So I'm going to talk this week about recording drums. How should you do it? How should you go about it? If you want to do it yourself, then that's great. You know, it's a very important thing to do to kind of get the real sound of your drummer on your music. Don't get me wrong, but it's quite complicated and it requires a lot of equipment. So you need to think through how you're going to do this before you just crack on and do it. I'm going to assume that you've got a DAW and a computer that you're happy with, and an audio interface with, let's say, 8 inputs. You can do it less, you can do it 4, but I think 8 is where you're going to get a really good solid drum sound where you're not making any compromises about what you're trying to do. So you need to think about firstly what you need to buy. This is not a cheap thing to do. I'm going to say this here, no, it's not a cheap thing to do. You need to work out what you're going to buy. Principally, they are microphones, stands, and XLR cables. Firstly, and most boringly, XLR cables. These bad boys are actually quite expensive for what they are, but you need them. You need obviously at least one per microphone you're planning on using. So if you've got an HL interface, you may as well have 8 XLRs, and you need the right length for what you need them for. Very important. Don't forget that. Don't buy really short ones if you need a longer run. So how are you going to get them? They're quite expensive. I think the best way to get them, if you're comfortable with the soldering iron, is to make your own. Buy the ends, buy the male and female connectors, buy the relevant cable. You can buy different colours to kind of differentiate different cables and make your own. There's YouTube videos on how to do it. It's wonderful. I find it quite a relaxing thing to do personally. Maybe some of you don't, maybe some of you find it stressful. That's fair enough. If you have a friend who knows how to solder, get them to do it. Wonderful. But that is really important, and you can't skimp on that. You can't not use those. That's just beginning, and that's what you need. Secondly, stands. Now, and by that I mean mic stands, and however many you need depends on exactly how you're setting up. So, for example, if you've got an 8 channel input, if you've got 8 channel audio interface, you might have channel 1 being a kick drum, channel 2 being the snare drum, 3 and 4 being toms. Let's say you've just got 2 toms in your drum kit, 5 and 6 being overheads, number 7 being a hi-hat, and let's say number 8 for using it is your room microphone. That means that you're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ideally mic stands, because I'm assuming, because most people do it this way nowadays, especially when you're recording yourselves, you can use the clip-on mic stands for your toms. You could even use that for your snare, but you're going to need to therefore think through getting those microphone stands and making sure they're the right heights. For example, you need quite a small one, quite a low down one for your kick drum. Using a full size one is not really going to work so well. You need a mic stand that is going to go over your drum kit and hold the microphone. Most overhead mics that you use, especially in a kind of home recording context, most overhead microphones are small diaphragm condensers. I'll talk more about this in a minute, and they're quite light, but you need something that's going to hold it in place and not move. That is really important. You just need them to be solid as you can afford. And I think honestly, the more money you spend on mic stands, the better. It's really boring. It's a really boring thing to buy, but it's so essential, because then your microphones will not move and you'll just get a solid recording, and that's going to make everything happier for you, basically. Let's talk about the most exciting thing. Let's talk about the microphones. You are going to need, as I said, at least 8 microphones for this job. If you're going to use every input, you can obviously have less. If you're going to use less, if you haven't got anything, then I think the best place to start is with a kind of drum kit mic pack. You can get them. They come in a case. They're made by companies like Lewitt, Audix make one, Shure make one. On the cheaper end, I think Samsung still make one. It's been a few years since I've checked. But have a look on your kind of music dealer website of choice. You can obviously go used as well. Don't forget to look on the used market for these things, because that will make it far, far cheaper. And that's honestly the best place to start. And if you want to kind of fill in a few gaps where you want to get up to 8 microphones that doesn't come with 8, then you can buy those individually. But there's loads of things I can say about what microphones you should use and what microphones will be best for each situation. But I'm going to go through a short list. Kick drum, you want a microphone that's designed for kick drum, designed for kind of gathering the low end. A very, very common choice is an AKG D112. But as I say, whatever comes in your mic kit pack, that's wonderful. Snare drum, honestly, an SM57 will do the job perfectly. But again, what mic comes in your pack is wonderful. Toms, every mic kit pack, as long as it's of a decent size, will come with tom mics that will capture them well enough, to be honest with you, and then you can EQ them to get them the way they need to be. But they're wonderful, they're straightforward. Overheads, most packs come with what are called small diaphragm condensers. Condensers are more sensitive microphones, and they capture a bit more detail in the sound. You're going to need to use the phantom power on your audio interface to power them. It's worth knowing. Some people might not know that, so you're going to need to do that, and that's wonderful, and it will work marvellously for you. If you're going to record a hi-hat separately, I honestly think any dynamic microphone will do a good job. Point it kind of over, pointing away from the snare drum, pointing at the hi-hat, and you're going to capture it. And finally, a room microphone. It can be a dynamic, it can be a condenser. Likelihood is you're not recording in the best quality room, so the best thing you can do is wander around the room whilst your drum is playing, find the point in the room where it just sounds cool, you have the most low end, the most vibe, put your microphone there. It's as simple as that, really. That can be any old microphone you have left, to be honest with you, because I think in a setup like this, the close mics are more important. You can always get more ambience using a plugin after the fact, kind of more of a room sound as well. So there is that. In terms of positioning, this is the thing that people find hardest, and I completely understand that. And I'm going to talk you through very briefly how you can do this for yourself. So your kick microphone, you obviously want to put this on your stand, put this on your kind of very low mic stand, and it needs to go ideally inside the kick drum, because ideally you'll have a port on the what's called the resonant head, the outside head of the kick drum, and you can put it in through there. If they don't have that, then often the best thing to do is to just take that resonant head completely off, so you can position this mic where you need it. So I'm roughly halfway into the kick drum, pointing out or just next to the batter, where the batter head is being hit by the pedal, and that's going to sound wonderful for you. That's going to sound great for you. If you want it to sound a bit more kind of clicky, then you need to put it closer to the head that's being hit. If you want it to sound a bit more kind of thumpy, take it further away from the head and towards the outside of the kick drum that way. And that's basically it. Mess about with where it sounds and where it sounds best to go with it. Snare drum, you want it a couple of inches off the top of the snare drum, right at the edge, pointing at the middle. Straightforward, really straightforward. Just do that and it will sound wonderful, as long as your snare drum sounds wonderful. Exactly the same with the toms. Point it towards the middle, a couple of inches up. If you're using clips, then it's just going to be wherever they position them. Overhead mics, you want to point them at the cymbals, let's say a stick and a half, 2 sticks-ish, up from the top of the cymbals. The really important thing to think about with overheads is phase. And phase is a whole topic that I could get into, but in brief, you want things to hit microphones at roughly the same time, otherwise it will sound weak and indefined and a bit horrible. There's loads of things you could do about this, but the easiest way to deal with it is to take one microphone, whichever one you kind of like look of, I don't know, measure the distance between the centre of the snare drum and that microphone, and the other microphone you've got, the other overhead, should be the same distance as the snare drum, and if it's not, bring it a bit closer. That way, the snare will sound powerful and big and massive, and that is what you really want. With the hi-hat mic, you want to point it kind of straight down, maybe half a stick or so from the edge of the hi-hat. In my head, that's kind of the best place to put it, pointing slightly away from the snare drum. You'll slightly reject the snare drum, which is really important as well. And finally, the room, as I said, you just want to point that somewhere where it sounds cool in the room. It's not the most essential mic, but it will give you a bit of vibe, and a bit of vibe is always nice. When you've got all that kind of roughly set up, that's when you need to start listening properly and setting your gain levels. And your gain level, it depends on how comfortable you are with these things, but I honestly think keep it simple and just do it straightforward. Aim for about minus 12-ish dB on your DAW. Have a look at where the meter is going to on that channel and aim for about minus 12, bearing in mind that when a drummer not really learning musician, is rehearsing or practicing, they won't be as loud as when they're playing themselves, like playing the actual track. They will just kind of hit a bit harder and dig in a bit more. So you might want to set it just a little bit lower than that. And to be honest with you, if you do follow all that, that will solve a lot of your problems, and you will be able to record some really cool drums that you can use in your productions. And you'll be using your actual drum in the production. You won't be using digital stuff, and your drum will probably be quite happy with that, to be honest with you. And I've mixed all sorts of drums that have been recorded exactly this way, and they sound really cool. So don't do yourself down. Don't kind of think this can't be done. It can be done, and it can be done very well. You just need to put a bit of thought into what you're doing. There's all sorts I could talk about drum tuning and stuff like that. It's really, really, really important that the drums are well tuned and that they are kind of set up appropriately for the song that you're trying to do. That is really important. That's the same as setting up a guitar. It just needs to be set up in the right way to play it properly and to sound right. That's not really what I'm focusing on here. Here I'm focusing on kind of microphones, where do you place them, what do you buy, how do you go about this, that kind of thing. If you want to talk about this in more detail, please do drop me a message, because this is a really big topic. I'm happy to talk it through, send photos, send ideas for where you can position your microphones, and talk about how you can get the most from your drum recording, because it's really important to make it sound as good as you possibly can from the source. That was an absolutely whirlwind trip through the world of drum recording. Don't get me wrong, there's far more to it than that. But if that's been helpful, as I said, drop me a message. We can have a conversation on Instagram or wherever, and we can start talking about this. I'm a nerd, I love this kind of thing. So there we are. So thank you for listening to another episode of the Music Survival Guide. If you liked it, please rate and review the podcast wherever you listen. It all helps the algorithm, of course. Please also share it with your friends and bandmates if it was helpful. If you want to have a chat about these kinds of things, about drum recording, about your next releases as a band. Finally, if you think about recording or mixing and talk about it, feel free to reach out to me via the links in the podcast description below, and we can have a talk about it, and I will see you next time.